Love spells. You've seen them, right? It seems many are making videos about love spells now, whether that is on how to do a certain love spell, whether that is telling stories about love spells, or even debating the ethical components of love spells. Here's the thing, I've seen many of these videos, but I have yet to see someone stop and question if those spells are actually about love or not. I started asking myself whether or not love spells were actually about love when I kept seeing the words obsession and zombie like being used in many love spell story times. It may just be my opinion, but I thought love wasn't about obsession, nor being zombie like around your partner, doing their bidding whenever they ask without having boundaries for yourself. Also, I don't know if it's due to my algorithm or not, but I don't usually see many love spell stories with actual happy endings either. There are a few, yes, but for the most part, these stories tend to end badly one way or another. I have to clarify, when I say badly, I don't mean that the love spell didn't work. Most of the time, it does work. What I mean is that there's always something that happens at the end or during the love spell working that makes the couple get separated anyway. Whether that is the smallest of things, like the spellcaster not wanting to the spell anymore, or that the victim realizes what has been done to them and tries to leave, or that something tragic happens. There's a variety of things that can happen and usually do, although, like I said before, there are some happy endings sometimes. But maybe it's just me, I don't know. Like I said, maybe it's my algorithm. So let's look to the past to see what kind of love spells they were casting. Are they the same or similar to what we have now, or were they completely different? We first are gonna go to the website Science Alert, and we're gonna look into the article called "This 1,300-year-old Egyptian love spell has finally been deciphered," written by David Neild, and it reads: An ancient Egyptian text, more than 1,300 years old, which would originally have been used as a magic spell, has finally been deciphered, and it seems like love was the goal. Today, of course, many of us might just use a dating app instead. The spell, or magic recipe, includes an image showing two bird-like creatures facing each other, surrounded by fragments of sentences referring to biblical characters and events. The text is written in Coptic, an Egyptian language that used Greek alphabet. A new analysis carried out by Dosoo from the University of Strasbourg in France draws comparisons with other similar papyrus artifacts and known rituals of the time to suggest that this was a recipe for love and possibly protection between two people. This image shows affinities, I think that's how it's said, with a number affinities with a number of similar tableaux from other texts of the same genre. An analysis of these images alongside textual evidence suggests that they may be understood as a representation of a ritual intended to unite two lovers, writes Dosoo in his published paper. One of around 900 papyri and papyrus fragments stored at Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia, this fragment is technically known as P. Mac in 588. I'm guessing what it means is Papyrus, Macquire, Inventory, 588. The slight differences between the two facing figures in the image on the papyrus might be an attempt to show a male and female characters, Dosoo says. The connection drawn between them could be a penis, according to the researcher, or maybe it's not that overtly sexual, maybe it's bonds or chains. But the fact these creatures are facing each other suggests love is the aim of the spell. In other magical recipes of the time intended to cause separation, the depicted figures would typically be facing apart. From an observer point of view, we could say that the image might have enhanced the performative aspect of the spell. The client might find the weird drawings an impressive addition to the overall atmosphere, an impression created by the ritual, Dosoo told Owen Jarros at Life Science. A mention of the biblical character Ahithophel, who deserted King David, hints that the incantation is designed to avoid such bad influences, as Christianity was widely practiced in Egypt at the time. There's also mention of an exotic deer musk perfume often used to attract lovers together. Short texts like this one would probably have been part of a larger volume, a kind of magician's handbook, as well as bringing love and blessing on couples or causing them to split up. They would also have been used to try to see the future or heal diseases. Dosoo says that while it's tricky to be certain about the age of the papyrus, it does match the style and content of other texts accurately, dated to the late 7th or early 8th century. The researcher also admits that trying to make sense of these magical recipes is far from easy. While he thinks his interpretation is broadly correct, there are other possibilities. The two figures could be demons, for example, looking to manipulate someone. Experts have been busy trying to decipher the magic spells in the Maguire University collection for years. This text may be part of the Handbook of Ritual Power that was the subject of a similar study back in 2014. But before you start using this on the object of your own affections, note that this recipe might not have been used to prompt two people to fall in love, but rather to give fate a nudge and clear the way for an existing love to happen. Christian literary texts from Egypt, which mention love spells, often imply that the problem is not that the woman doesn't love the man per se, but that he does not have access to her, because she is a young unmarried girl protected and secluded by her family or already married to someone else, Dosoo told Life Science. And that is the end of this article. So I want to mention a few things from this article. While for the more excuse me, for the most part, we see that the article is trying to the article and the researcher, they are trying to lean on the positive side of what this spell might actually have been for. We can see still that they could also conclude that the spell was actually trying to take someone from someone else at the end there. And that's actually something I also see when people are trying to do love spells on others. I'm gonna give another example. Actually, not another example. I'm gonna give my first real life example that I myself have experienced. So, for those who don't know, I used to work at a mystical magical shop, and the owner was a tarot reader, but the owner also did voodoo and sometimes Santeria magic. While working there, I saw a few clients, although I can only really remember two specifically, but I saw a few clients going to him trying to get readings for the person that they they were romantically or sexually involved with, but also sometimes these other people were with partners already. And the clients that came in, well, at first they would focus on the readings. At kind of like maybe a few sessions later, they will ask my boss for a love spell to either take those people away from their current partners or make those people obsessed with the client or something of the sorts. So I saw a lot of spells that my boss did that more so being love spells, they were mostly binding and control spells. Alright, now let's go to the second article I want us to read. This is in the CBS News website. It is called Sex Spells Discovered on Ancient Egyptian Papyri by Owen Jarvis. And it reads, Ancient magical spells of love, subjugation, and sex. It may sound like a Game of Thrones episode, but these evil doings are also found on two recently deciphered papyri from Egypt dating to around 1,700 years old. One spell invokes the gods to burn the heart of a woman until she loves the spellcaster, said Franco Maltomini of the University of Udine in Italy, who translated the two spells. Another spell, targeted at a male, uses a series of magical words to subject him, forcing him to do whatever the spellcaster wants. The two spells were not targeted at a specific person, rather they were written in such a way that the person who cast the spell could only need to insert the name of the person being targeted, sort of an ancient Mad Libs. Researchers dated the two spells to the 3rd century AD, but the names of the ancient spell writers were unknown. The spells are written in Greek, a language widely used in Egypt at the time. Archaeologists Bernard Grenfell and Arthur Hunt discovered the spells in Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, more than 100 years ago, among a haul of hundreds of thousands of papyri. Over the past century, scientists have gradually studied and translated the papyri. Many of them are now owned by the Egypt Exploration Society and are housed and studied at the University of Oxford in England. Maltomini is part of a larger group of editors and contributors from multiple institutions who analyzed and translated the most recent batch of these magical texts, which will be published in an upcoming volume of Oxyrhynchus Papyri, a series of books devoted to publishing the papyri from Oxyrhynchus. A love spell. The deciphered love spell invokes several Gnostic gods. Its Gnosticism was an ancient religion that incorporated elements of Christianity. It says that the spellcaster should burn a series of offerings in the bathhouse. The names of the offerings didn't survive degradation. And write a spell on the bathhouse's walls, which Maltomini translated as follows: I adjure you, earth and waters, by the demon who dwells on you, and adjure the fortune of this bath, so that as you blaze and burn and flame, so burn her, the woman targeted, whom the mother of the woman targeted bore, until she comes to me. Then the spell names several gods and magical words. It goes on to say holy names, inflame in this way, and burn the heart of her, until she falls in love with the person casting the spell. Animal droppings and magic. The text of the other deciphered spell the other deciphered spell calls for the person casting it to engrave onto a small copper plaque a series of magic words, including the phrase translated as subject to me, the person's name, man, whom this person bore, and then to stitch the plaque onto something the man wears, such as a sandal. The spell, if successful, was supposed to force the man to do whatever the spellcaster wanted, the ancient text says. On the back of the papyrus is a list of recipes that use droppings from animals to treat a wide range of conditions, including headaches and leprosy. Some of the recipes simply say that they help promote pleasure. One recipe says that a combination of honey and droppings from a bittern bird used in a way that isn't specified will promote pleasure according to the ancient text. And the article ends there. So in this article, we can see that both spells discussed here, very old spells, are actually leaning more into control and obsession territory, more so than what we saw in the first article. And here in the second article, they aren't even putting the negative connotations at the end of the article like we saw in the first. They are actually just naming everything from the very start. So we know that these spells in this case were actually more for control and for subjugation and a little bit of obsession. Now let's go to the third article. This one is in the British Library blog under medieval manuscripts. I don't see who wrote it. Let me see if it's... Ah, okay. At the end it says Federica Micucci is the author of this article. This article was written on February 2021, and I say that because it does mention Valentine's Day. So here we go. And it reads, Love spells in the magical Greek papyri. As it's nearly Valentine's Day, we have collected some charming love spells preserved in the Greek magical papyri of the British Library. Such spells were believed to rouse love and passion, but more worryingly, they were also intended to bind and attract the loved one to the user. So here, right off the bat, they are recognizing that while some spells are used for positive things like rousing love and passion, they were also, for the most part, used to bind and attract a loved one to the spellcaster. Alright, let's continue. Some spells even went so far as to cause suffering to the victim, which was to end after the lovers were united. Let me say that again. Some spells even went so far as to cause suffering to the victim, which was to end after the lovers were united. And this is something I have seen in some love spell stories, modern love spell stories on TikTok. While I was looking at them to see which ones I wanted to use for this video, That was one of the things that I saw. All right, let's continue. Most of the spells presented below are preserved in Papyrus 121, a magical handbook presumably from the 4th century Egypt, originally a roll over 2 meters long, containing spells for various purposes, from healing and binding to obtaining protection and success. A fetching love spell. Love spells often have titles that define their nature in more detail. One of the most frequent types are the love spells that lead, named agoge and agogimon in ancient Greek. This type of spell had the aim of bringing the victim, the victim, to the person performing the magic. One of these spells instructs the user to take a seashell, write holy names with the blood of a black donkey, and recite a formula to attract the victim. The user should select the time to perform the ritual very carefully, as the spell had immediate effect. Second spell. Securing eternal love. Magical words recur constantly in the magical papyri. There are unintelligible sequences of words or syllables thought to have magical power. The spell, believed to obtain the eternal love of a woman on the spot by invoking the god Yabo, displays the magical words at the end. Third spell. An excellent love charm. Magical signs known as caracteres were another powerful tool. These symbols often had the shape of asterisks or lines ending in small circles. The following love spell makes use of such signs. The spell is described as the excellent love charm, literally potion or philtron. It explains that a tin lamella should be engraved with some magical signs and names, rolled up with some magical materials, perhaps a lock of hair or a piece of clothing, and thrown into the sea. The practitioner should also remember to use a copper nail from a wrecked ship for writing. Fourth spell. Invoking deities. Invoking deities for help is another common feature of love spells. A special invocation to Selene, the moon, is contained in the following spell. Addressing Selene as the mistress of the entire world, the user was instructed to make offerings to her by molding a mixture of clay, sulfur, and blood of a dappled goat into a figurine of the goddess, and by consecrating a shrine made of olive wood which should never face the sun. As a result, Selene would send a holy angel who would drag the victim by their feet and hair to the user. The victims would be fearful and sleepless because of their love for the individual performing the magic. Success is guaranteed as the power of the spell is strong according to the papyrus. Fifth spell, over a cup. Among the objects featuring in magical rituals are also those of daily use. The following spell is a good drinking cup spell. Over a cup, the user ought to repeat magical words 7 times. These were believed to be the holy names of Cyprus, that is Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Users of the spell hoped that the loved one's heart would be reached and their love would be returned. Sixth spell. Magical drawings. Spells may have been accompanied by drawings to serve as a model for performing the ritual. For example, a picture is mentioned in the following spell, although the papyrus itself does not preserve it. Take a shell from the sea and draw on it with myrrh ink the figure of Typhon given below, and in a circle write his names and throw it into the heating of a bath. But when you throw it, keep reciting the words engraved in a circle and attract to me her, the name of the person whom this person bore, and this very day, from this very hour on, with her soul and heart aflame, quickly, quickly, immediately, immediately. Seventh spell, unmanageable targets. The fetching spell, Agoge, was believed to work with quote unquote unmanageable targets. The names of 7 great gods should be written with myrrh on 7 wicks of a lamp, which ought to not be read. The lamp was lit and had wormwood seed on top. A formula should then be recited. The victim would be sleepless until he reached the practitioner's house. This would happen by the time the seventh wick flickered. After reading these ancient love spells, we definitely prefer our Valentine's Day celebrations to be charmless. The development of erotic magic continued in the following centuries. You can discover more in our post blog. And then the article ends there. Now that we've seen some of the ancient love spells from the past, let us look into some modern depictions. And first, we're gonna start with some movie clips, and then some real life love spells from YouTube and TikTok. By the way, I do apologize if the sound gets loud on these clips. It's just that the clips have music, so maybe just turn the sound down. Alright, we will start with the movie Teen Witch. I'm sorry, guys, I ran out of time with the website that I'm using, so please go to the next video, and the next video will probably be posted the day or 2 days after this first one. But keep an eye out and then go to the next video where I will post the all of the videos, the movie clips, and the YouTube and TikTok real love story clips, and also the end of this discussion. So I will see you there, and thank you so much for watching, listening, and supporting my content. My content. Bye, guys.